There are moments when reality presses against your chest so hard it feels almost impossible to breathe. The rent is due. The numbers don't stretch far enough. You open the fridge, and the silence inside feels like it is echoing back your own fears. And in that same moment, you hear voices telling you to feel rich, to see abundance. And deep inside, a question rises: how can I feel wealthy when everything outside of me screams lack? This paradox creates guilt, frustration, and that painful sense of being a fraud, as if even trying to believe in abundance is another failure added to the list. But what if this is not a contradiction? What if the very act of feeling rich while poor is not deception, but creation itself? Neville Goddard said it with a clarity that pierces illusions. The world you see is only shadow, a reflection of inner choices. Facts, he taught, are clay, and imagination is the potter. You can hold the same piece of clay and create a bowl or a broken fragment, but the clay itself has no final form until imagination gives it one. In the same way, your bank account, your job, your circumstances, these are not verdicts. They are old clay. They are delayed shadows of the states you carried yesterday. Imagine sitting in a theater. On the screen, a story unfolds. It feels real. It provokes emotion. It brings you to tears. But the screen has no power. The projector behind you holds the reel, and it is there where the film exists. The reel dictates the image, not the screen. Life is exactly like that. What you see in front of you is nothing more than the film already recorded. The true power, the place where the story is being decided, is inside you, in imagination. If you only stare at the screen, you become a prisoner of the past. But if you turn inward to the real, you step into authorship. Even science affirms this invisible truth. Bruce Lipton's work in epigenetics shows that perception changes biology itself. The body doesn't respond to raw environment. It responds to the way the mind perceives that environment. A poor external setting does not dictate a poor destiny. What determines your future is the image you hold of yourself. This is why two people can live through the same difficulty and emerge with completely different outcomes. One stays prisoner to circumstance, the other becomes master of their inner state, and from there, reality bends. So what you are about to receive is not another invitation to deny your bills or suppress your fears. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is not an escape. What you are going to learn here is how to embody wealth in the mind while still navigating outer lack without guilt, without self-deception, without pretending. Because wealth is not about ignoring what is. It is about seeing through it. It is about remembering that what is visible now is only the past, and what is invisible now is already shaping the future. This video is an initiation into the practice of living rich in the silence of your mind until the world can no longer resist reflecting it. You will see that feeling rich while poor is not delusion. It is discipline. It is faith made alive. And in that discipline, a new identity begins to breathe through you. You will discover that the cure for feeling poor is not out there in money or proof. The cure is in the atmosphere you cultivate within. And once that atmosphere is alive, reality has no choice but to surrender to it. There is a subtle but powerful difference between having no money and being poor. One belongs to circumstance, the other to identity. And this is where many remain trapped without noticing it. They look at an empty wallet and immediately conclude, "I am poor." Yet Neville Goddard reminds us with unwavering clarity, poverty is not in the numbers, it is a state of consciousness. To confuse the two is to hand over your inner authorship to passing shadows. Consider this. A person can be broke in the physical sense, unable to cover every expense, and yet walk into a room with such presence, such certainty of their worth, that they radiate wealth without a coin in their pocket. Another person can possess millions, but be so consumed by fear of loss that they live in invisible chains, always suspicious, always anxious, forever poor in spirit. Wealth or poverty is not determined by what you own, but by what you accept as true about yourself. Think of the wallet in your pocket or the account on your phone as nothing more than a mirror. A mirror cannot tell you who you are. It only reflects who you have assumed yourself to be. If you stare at the mirror of circumstance and let it dictate your identity, then you become prisoner to whatever reflection appears. But if you close your eyes and claim the state of wealth within, the mirror has no choice but to follow in time. You may already know this intellectually, yet when bills are due, it is easy to forget. The mind insists, this is reality. But what you are looking at is not reality in its fullness. It is only one layer, one delayed echo of states you once carried. To carry the state of poverty is to wear an inner garment that colors every interaction, every choice, every tone of voice. To carry the state of wealth is to shift that garment even before the fabric of life has had time to rearrange itself. Pause for a moment and notice, what state are you wearing as you listen? Is it the state of the one who fears or the one who knows? This is not denial of circumstance. It is the recognition that identity precedes circumstance. To awaken to this is to begin walking as someone who is no longer defined by what the eyes see, but by what the inner vision claims as already true. What you call facts are never alive in the present. They are old photographs, frozen frames of who you once believed yourself to be. When you open your bank account, when you see the numbers on the screen, you are not seeing truth. You are seeing the residue of assumptions carried yesterday. The numbers are not prophecy, they are expired evidence. Neville Goddard revealed this with precision. Your present world is nothing more than crystallized imagination. The images you have allowed yourself to hold, the feelings you have repeated, the silent choices you have made, all of them converge into a delayed reflection called facts. But what you see now has already been decided before. It is not the cause, it is the effect. Think of it like a photograph lying on a table. That picture may show you thinner, heavier, younger, older. It may hold the expression of a season already gone. You don't look at that photo and say, "This is me now." You understand it belongs to a past version of yourself. And yet, with money, with circumstance, with relationships, you stare at the photograph and convince yourself it is present reality. You allow an outdated image to dictate your living identity. This misunderstanding fuels despair. You look at lack and believe it is permanent. You treat the delayed echo as a fresh song, forgetting that the music has already shifted in the unseen. Neville called it yesterday's assumption. If you allow your attention to be enslaved by expired evidence, then you live always behind, never free to create anew. The liberation begins when you recognize what you see in front of you is not the authority. It is only memory. The screen in front of you is a lagging display. The reel has already moved on, and you are free, now in this breath, to choose which reel will play next. So when lack appears, do not call it your truth. Call it what it really is, an old photograph of your former self. And remember that today's inner vision, today's silent assumption, is already taking shape beyond what the eyes can yet confirm. There is a subtle trap that quietly robs many of their power, the constant need for proof. You say you believe, you say you are assuming the state of wealth, yet your hand still reaches for the phone to check the balance. Your eyes still search for evidence, your heart still waits for the outer confirmation before allowing itself to rest. And every time you check, every time you wait, you tie yourself again to the vibration of lack. This is not simply a spiritual idea, it is written into the very chemistry of the brain. Neuroscience shows that the act of checking becomes a loop of dopamine, a cycle of anticipation and disappointment. Each time you look for proof, your body learns to crave the external signal instead of dwelling in the inner state. You become addicted not to wealth itself, but to the thrill of looking for it, which means you remain forever outside of it. Neville Goddard warned of this hunger for evidence. He taught that what must be transferred is not only attention, but reward itself. The prize is not in the numbers, not in the deposits, not in the letters arriving in the mail. The prize is in the assumption itself. It is in the invisible state you choose to occupy before the world bows to it. If your joy, your sense of relief, your deep breath of security are postponed until the reflection changes, then you are still enslaved to the mirror. But what if you allowed the satisfaction to come now? What if you trained your system to release reward at the very moment you assume, not at the moment you verify? Imagine what would shift in your body if peace came not after the bank message arrived, but the moment you said within yourself, "It is done, I am wealthy now." This is not imagination as escape. This is imagination as authorship. The emotional sabotage ends when you stop demanding proof, when you allow the state itself to be enough, when the quiet act of assuming becomes its own ecstasy, its own reward. Then the outer world becomes powerless to control your inner rhythm, and in that freedom, creation accelerates, for you no longer wait for wealth. You live it, even before the mirror agrees. One of the deepest fears that arises on this path is the fear of self-deception. You begin to affirm abundance. You begin to feel wealth within. Yet a voice whispers, "But isn't this lying to myself? Isn't this just pretending?" That voice is the voice of the old state fighting for survival, trying to convince you that imagination is false and only what the senses report is real. Neville Goddard turns this fear inside out. He reminds us that feeling rich while poor is not lying. It is rehearsing truth. It is embodying the unseen reality until it clothes itself in form. Think of an actor stepping onto a stage. He takes on a role, not because he has lost touch with reality, but because in his embodiment, a new reality is created for the audience to experience. The actor does not call himself a liar. He calls himself an artist. And the world accepts the role as truth because he has dared to inhabit it fully. You are doing the same. When you assume wealth in the silence of your heart, you are not lying. You are stepping into the role of your higher self, the one who has always been whole, prosperous, and secure. This role is not fantasy. It is the deeper truth waiting to surface. What feels like pretending is, in fact, the most honest act you can perform, to give more weight to your inner knowing than to the fleeting shadows of circumstance. Consider this paradox. The one who calls it lying is already lying, for they insist that only lack is real, when lack itself is temporary. The one who feels wealth in the midst of poverty is the one telling truth, because they are aligned with the eternal rather than the passing. To feel rich when the wallet is empty is not delusion. It is integrity with the greater reality that precedes the visible. So when the doubt arises, when the voice accuses you of pretending, breathe into the deeper knowing. Say to yourself, "I am not lying. I am remembering. I am rehearsing truth until the world itself must bow to it." And soon what was once rehearsed becomes natural, what was once assumed becomes obvious, and the role is no longer a role, it is your life. Beware of gratitude for scraps. Gratitude is one of the most sacred forces of creation, yet when misunderstood, it can become a subtle chain that binds you to lack. Many have been taught to give thanks for whatever is in front of them, even if it is insufficiency. They stare at the crumbs and force themselves to say, "I am grateful." But inside, a quiet resistance grows because the heart knows it is not gratitude, it is resignation. Neville Goddard revealed that true gratitude does not rise from the scraps. It springs from the end already fulfilled. To give thanks for lack is to stamp lack with approval. To give thanks from the state of already being wealthy is to draw wealth nearer, for gratitude then is not forced, it is natural. Just as a person who has eaten their fill does not need to repeat, "I am satisfied," they simply feel it, and the body responds with peace. Think of someone standing before an empty table, whispering thanks while hunger gnaws at their stomach. Now imagine someone seated at a banquet, lifting their eyes and giving thanks with effortless joy, because fullness is already present. One is gratitude chained to absence. The other is gratitude flowing from presence. The first keeps you in the loop of scraps. The second dissolves the scraps and multiplies the feast. So when you hear the call to gratitude, remember, it is not about forcing appreciation for what feels incomplete. It is about dwelling in the atmosphere of completion until gratitude rises on its own, without command, without effort. In that atmosphere, every breath feels like overflow. Every glance at life feels like confirmation. Gratitude then becomes not a practice you perform, but a natural fragrance of the state you have entered. To live in this way is to stop bowing to the scraps and begin living from the feast, even before the table has been set in the outer world. And when gratitude flows from that place, the banquet cannot delay. It arrives because you have already taken your seat. Neville Goddard declared it with simplicity: feeling is the secret. The state you occupy within yourself, the emotional air you breathe each day, is the seed from which your future grows. To feel wealth is not merely to repeat affirmations or imagine large sums. It is to construct an atmosphere around you, an invisible environment that whispers abundance even in silence. Imagine entering a room where the air is scented with flowers. Even without seeing the bouquet, you sense beauty. The fragrance permeates everything. Wealth is the same. It is not about one loud declaration. It is about the subtle climate of your inner world. When that climate is rich, every gesture, every word, every choice carries the fragrance of abundance. Others feel it, even if you never speak of it. Begin by recalling an ordinary moment made extraordinary by wealth. Picture yourself sitting at the table, casually paying bills with ease. See the letters open without fear, your hand steady, your body relaxed. Feel the exhale of relief, not because money is arriving someday, but because the flow is already here. Or imagine walking through a store, choosing what you desire without hesitation, not from extravagance but from quiet certainty that you are supplied. These are not fantasies. They are rehearsals of truth, truth that begins to wrap itself around your nervous system until your body cannot tell the difference between imagination and fact. The atmosphere of wealth is not built through strain. It is built through repetition of feeling. A few minutes of dwelling in this scene, a few minutes of breathing the air of inevitability, and the subconscious begins to accept it as home. From there, the body aligns, decisions shift, words change, and reality bends. What matters most is the atmosphere you permit yourself to live in long enough to believe it. Wealth is not a sudden event that crashes into your life. It is a climate, patiently constructed, until one day you realize you no longer have to enter the scene. You are already dwelling in it. And when the atmosphere is alive, the outer world cannot resist arranging itself to match it. When most people imagine wealth, they expect fireworks. They picture euphoria, a rush of adrenaline, a constant high of excitement. And yet the true state of richness does not feel like an ecstatic celebration. It feels calm. It feels ordinary. It feels like life itself, lived without the tension of lack. This is the paradox that confuses many seekers. Wealth does not arrive as fantasy. It settles as identity. Neville Goddard pointed to this truth again and again. To feel it real is not to generate a frenzy of emotions, but to step into the quiet certainty that what you assume is already so. True wealth, when embodied, loses the sharp edge of desire. It becomes the natural air you breathe, no more surprising than the rising sun. The mind may resist this at first, longing for the thrill of imagining millions falling from the sky. But such thrills belong to dreams not yet made flesh. The danger lies in mistaking fantasy for assumption. If wealth feels distant, exaggerated, too good to be true, then it has not yet sunk into the soil of your being. It remains an image floating above you rather than a root growing within you. But when the identity of wealth takes hold, the fantasy dissolves, replaced by a steady sense of inevitability. You do not wake each morning astonished that you are alive. You simply live. In the same way, the wealthy state becomes so normal that it no longer excites the mind, it simply is. This is why the path to manifestation requires patience with neutrality. You are not trying to escape into an emotional high. You are allowing wealth to become ordinary, natural, expected. And it is in that neutrality, not in the ecstatic bursts, that the world bends. For what has become ordinary in you cannot be denied outside of you. Wealth is not meant to be chased as a fantasy, but received as a normal rhythm of life. And the sooner you accept that calmness is the true sign of embodiment, the sooner you will rest into the state that calls the outer world into harmony. One of the greatest sources of frustration on this journey is the silent war of identities. By day, a person walks the world with the heaviness of lack, speaking and acting as if money is far away. By night, they retreat into affirmations, repeating, "I am rich," with desperate intensity, and when results do not come, they believe the method is broken, when in truth it is the inner contradiction that drains their power. Psychology calls this cognitive dissonance, the exhaustion that comes when two opposing beliefs attempt to coexist in the same mind. You cannot wear the garment of poverty in your gestures, tone, and daily decisions, and then expect the affirmation of wealth at night to rewrite the fabric of your life. The conflict itself consumes energy, leaving you tired, doubtful, and even more convinced that wealth is out of reach. Neville Goddard spoke often about consistency of assumption. To assume is not to repeat words. It is to inhabit the identity of the one who already is. This does not mean extravagant actions or reckless spending. It means subtle alignment. The way you sit, the way you breathe, the way you respond to challenges. All of these become quiet confirmations of the state you have claimed. The more these small acts agree with your inner vision, the stronger the assumption grows until it becomes unshakable. Think of a seed planted in soil. If you water it by day but dig it up by night to check its progress, it will never take root. So it is with identity. You cannot nourish wealth in imagination while uprooting it with poverty in daily living. The seed needs consistency. It needs you to trust that the invisible growth is already happening, even before it pierces the surface. When the outer world tempts you to slip back into the old identity, remember, each gesture of agreement with lack is a vote for poverty. Each gesture of agreement with wealth is a vote for abundance. Over time, the votes accumulate into the person you become. The failure is not in the method, but in the divided self. And the cure is in choosing one identity and refusing to betray it, no matter what the mirror reflects. Wealth precedes money. There is a story of a man who seemed to have nothing. His pockets were empty, his debts were rising, and yet he carried within him a different posture, a different atmosphere. Instead of walking as one in need, he began to embody the state of an investor. He stopped presenting himself as a seeker of money and began to radiate the calm authority of one who already manages it. His words shifted. His decisions reflected long-term vision rather than short-term desperation. He became wealth in identity before a single coin appeared in his account. Within months, others began to notice. Opportunities flowed to him, not because he begged for them, but because people felt the resonance of certainty in him. Funding arrived, partnerships formed, and doors opened, not in response to what he said he wanted, but in response to who he had silently become. The world did not respond to his story of need. It responded to the vibration of identity he carried without apology. Neville Goddard insisted that people will always treat you according to the state you occupy. You cannot fool life with empty words, but when you assume an identity deeply enough, you no longer need to persuade anyone. Others sense it. Circumstances arrange themselves. Reality bends because identity is magnetic. This is the hidden key. Money is not what makes you wealthy. Wealth precedes money. The state comes first, the evidence follows. If you wait for numbers to change before you allow yourself to feel rich, you will wait forever. But if you allow yourself to become wealth in identity now, even when the world still shows lack, you set in motion an invisible law that cannot be denied. And when you live from that place, something miraculous occurs. You stop chasing. You no longer seek validation from outcomes. Instead, outcomes begin to seek you, because you have already become the cause. Wealth precedes money, always. And once you stand in that truth, life has no choice but to reflect it. Long before modern teachings on manifestation, the Stoics practiced a discipline that revealed the same secret Neville Goddard would later illuminate. They called it indifference to circumstance. On chosen days, they would live simply, even in voluntary poverty, not as punishment, but to remember that wealth is not defined by possessions. In stripping away comforts, they discovered that true richness could never be stolen, because it was not in the outer, but in the state of mind. Neville echoed this wisdom when he urged his students to detach from facts while inhabiting the end. He knew that as long as you allow current evidence to dictate your inner state, you remain bound to a cycle of repetition. To break free, you must learn the art of indifference, the ability to look at lack without bowing to it, to experience limitation without wearing it as identity. Imagine a day where nothing in the outer world changes, yet your posture, your breath, your presence declares, "I am untouched." The rent may be due, the numbers may appear small, but your inner state does not tremble. This is not denial. It is mastery. It is the recognition that circumstances are shadows that pass, while states endure and command the future. The Stoics called these practices training for freedom. Neville called it living in the end. Both point to the same truth. Your inner wealth is untouchable when you refuse to let the mirror of the world control the reflection you carry inside. One day a week, one moment at a time, you can practice this indifference, not by ignoring life, but by remembering that life bends to you, not the other way around. To live this way is to step beyond fear. You no longer tremble at the sight of lack, because you know lack is only the husk of a former self. You no longer chase wealth, because you have discovered the treasure already within. In this indifference, paradoxically, lies the greatest magnetism. For when you no longer need proof, proof rushes to find you. There is a turning point in every journey of awakening where the teaching ceases to be abstract knowledge and becomes the very air you breathe. That turning point comes the moment you stop treating your circumstances as the author of your life and begin to live as if the unseen state within you is more real than the evidence before your eyes. It is here, in this quiet but revolutionary shift, that Neville Goddard's words reveal their full force. The outer world bends inevitably to the inner assumption. To feel wealthy while the world insists you are poor is not deception. It is fidelity to the greater truth. Poverty is not the absence of money. Poverty is the acceptance of limitation as your identity. And wealth is not measured by digits or possessions. Wealth is the state of knowing you are complete, supplied, secure, and free. Once that state becomes your dwelling place, the forms of money, opportunity, and abundance are drawn to you with the same certainty that a shadow must follow the body. The world does not create your state. Your state creates the world you live in. Neville insisted that facts are shadows. What you see right now, your bank account, your bills, your obligations, is not prophecy, it is memory. It is an echo of the self you once carried. And to mistake that echo for destiny is to keep yourself imprisoned in yesterday. The cure for feeling poor is not to fight against circumstances, nor to force yourself into shallow affirmations. The cure is to shift states, to clothe yourself in the garment of wealth until the feeling becomes so natural that it no longer requires effort. Modern science affirms what these mystics declared. Bruce Lipton's research in epigenetics demonstrates that the body is not controlled by rigid genetics, but by perception. Your cells are listening to the stories you tell yourself, to the emotions you repeat, to the atmosphere you carry. If you live in the vibration of lack, the body contracts, the nervous system signals survival, and the future unfolds from that scarcity. But if you dwell in the conviction of abundance, even before outer evidence, your body expands, your chemistry changes, and opportunities align in ways that logic alone cannot explain. In truth, belief writes biology, and biology shapes destiny. This is why your inner work is not wasted effort. Every time you pause to feel relief as though the debt is already gone, every time you smile quietly as if the opportunity has already arrived, every time you rest in the calmness of wealth without needing proof, you are programming not only your subconscious but your very body to inhabit the future now. You are teaching your cells to live the end before the end is visible. And once the inner world accepts it, the outer world must bow. Picture life as a mirror with a delay. If you smile into it, the reflection does not appear instantly, but it appears. If you frown, the same truth holds. The mirror never leads. It only returns what it has been given. And yet how often do we sit before the mirror, waiting for it to smile first, refusing to move until evidence arrives? This is the root of stagnation. The mirror does not lie, but it does not initiate. You must smile first. You must assume first. You must dwell in the state before the reflection appears. To live in wealth of mind while the world still shows lack requires courage. It requires patience. It requires the discipline of faith that is not shaken by delay. But this courage is not heavy. It is liberating. Because once you know that the reflection is guaranteed, you stop waiting in fear and begin living in joy. You stop chasing outcomes and begin radiating identity. And it is identity, not effort, that magnetizes the world around you. The cure for feeling poor is not in chasing money. It is not in forcing gratitude for scraps or repeating empty affirmations while still bowing to lack. The cure is to establish yourself in the identity of wealth so deeply that the atmosphere of abundance becomes your second nature. From that atmosphere, gratitude flows without force, decisions align without strain, and life unfolds with quiet inevitability. So as we come to the close of this journey, remember this: you are not waiting for wealth to arrive. You are not striving to prove yourself worthy. You are remembering that wealth is already the truth of who you are. You are stepping into alignment with the self that has never lacked, the self that walks calmly, breathes deeply, and knows that the universe responds faithfully to every assumption. Life is a mirror with a delay. Keep smiling into it. Keep radiating the inner richness that already belongs to you. Keep dwelling in the atmosphere of abundance until the reflection can no longer resist. Do not wait for proof. Do not wait for permission. Do not wait for the world to confirm what you already know. The cure for feeling poor is to live rich in mind until the world surrenders.